The air outside the Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown Chicago was crisp, with a late autumn chill that whispered through the marble-lined avenues. The hotel, a gilded giant of wealth and privilege, gleamed with ostentation, valet-parked Bentleys, Italian chandeliers, and staff trained to never blink at $1 billion request. But not everyone was welcome the same way. Not here. Not tonight. A matte black Escalade pulled to a silent stop in front of the revolving glass doors. From it stepped a woman who looked out of place only to those who still clung to old biases. She wore no designer logos, no glittering jewelry to scream wealth. Her elegance was understated. Black wool trench, tightly braided hair swept into a crown, and eyes sharp with experience and resilience. Her name was Elena Brixton, a 39-year-old tech and logistics mogul who had just flown in after finalizing a merger deal in Switzerland. She was also the anonymous principal stakeholder in the Meridian Hotel Group, but no one here knew that. She was just another black woman to them, another face without a name, and unfortunately, a target of condescension wrapped in smiling hospitality. Elena entered the lobby with quiet confidence, glancing at the roaring fireplace and the soaring glass ceiling that had once been her grandfather's vision. When she was younger, she'd swept these very floors with her mother, who worked as a cleaning supervisor here when the hotel was still just a Midtown Inn. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Elena had bought the entire Meridian Group 6 years ago through a blind trust. She had kept her ownership secret, wanting the company to run on merit rather than fear. But tonight, that decision would be tested. "Can I help you?" A young concierge with sleek hair and a nameplate reading Tiffany asked, her voice hovering between politeness and scrutiny. "Yes, I have a penthouse reservation, under the name E. Brixton." Tiffany's smile flickered. "Are you sure it's to this hotel?" Elena didn't blink. "Yes, booked under Black Card Elite, 3 weeks ago." Tiffany nodded, lips pursed as if to hold back a sigh. She tapped her iPad with long acrylic nails, then stopped suddenly. I see," she said. "But may I ask you to provide the card you used for booking?" Elena retrieved her matte black American Express Centurion card, setting it on the counter without a word. Tiffany picked it up like it was fake. She blinked. One moment." She turned toward the back desk, whispering to another front desk agent. They both looked at Elena, then chuckled. Elena heard it, laughed at her. The other agent, a middle-aged man named Gregory, walked over. "I'm sorry, Ms. Brixton," he said, clearly unconvinced. "We're going to have to verify the authenticity of this card. We've had issues with counterfeit cards lately. I'm sure you understand." Elena raised a brow. "No, I don't." Gregory faltered for half a beat. "Well, I can't just check you in with this until we confirm with management. It's protocol." "Is that the protocol for everyone?" Gregory hesitated again. "It's standard when the card raises concerns." "Concerns," Elena repeated, her voice calm. "You think I stole it?" "I didn't say that," Gregory said quickly. "But you implied it." A valet approached the counter just then, whispering something to Tiffany, who leaned in and whispered back, her hand gesturing toward Elena as if pointing out someone suspicious. Elena watched it all. The whispering, the judgment, the presumptions. Then came the final insult. Tiffany turned back and said with a tight smile, "We're sorry, but the penthouse has already been allocated to another guest due to a booking error. We can offer you a deluxe suite on the 6th floor instead." Elena said nothing for a long moment. Then she reached for her phone. "I'll wait here." Part 2. The call that changed everything. While Tiffany returned to her whispering, Elena stepped a few feet away and dialed a private number. "Ms. Brixton," a British accented voice answered. "Elijah, I want you to do 2 things." "Of course." 1. Call the board of Meridian. Emergency Zoom in 30 minutes. "Understood." 2. Cancel the merger with Traversa Holdings. Pull every dollar out. Elijah paused. "That's a $4.9 billion cancellation. Are you sure?" "Yes." "Elena, may I ask why?" She turned slowly to look at Gregory and Tiffany still chuckling behind the counter. "Because I'm done pretending." Elena Brixton stood tall in the Grand Meridian lobby, her face calm, expression unreadable, yet behind her eyes was a fire years in the making. Tiffany returned behind the counter, smirking with Gregory as if they had already written her story. Unimportant, forgettable, not a real guest, certainly not a billionaire. The audacity! They didn't know that in 29 minutes, everything around them would begin to unravel. Across the lobby, a middle-aged white couple in Burberry coats checked in without issue. Tiffany gave them champagne, warm towels, and a smile that reached her eyes. Elena noticed the difference. It wasn't subtle. It never had been. This is why she kept her ownership hidden. She had wanted to know what her empire looked like when no one was performing for the boss. Tonight, she saw it clearly, polished discrimination wrapped in five-star service. As the couple walked past her, the man accidentally bumped her shoulder and didn't even turn around. No apology. It had been years since someone looked through her like that. She almost laughed. From sleeping in the back of her mother's rusted Honda at age 10 to being invisible again in a building she owned. The irony. She looked around at the velvet sofas, the glittering lobby bar, the vaulted marble ceilings, and every inch of it felt tainted now. It had once been her mother's dream to work here. It had become Elena's mission to own it. She remembered the long nights, coding logistics platforms by day, waitressing by night, saving pennies to build a foundation no one could take. When her tech company exploded during the shipping crisis, she reinvested every dollar. Quietly, strategically, no headlines, no interviews. She bought into this hotel chain quietly through dummy corporations, trusts, and blind LLCs, building an empire where no one knew her name, on purpose. She had always wanted to see what people did when they didn't know who she was. Now she had her answer. Part 4, Emergency Board Call. 28 minutes later, a Zoom screen flickered to life in a suite 23 floors above the lobby. The Grand Meridian's executive board, composed of 12 aging white men and one Asian American woman named Victoria Chen, blinked onto the call, clearly caught off guard by the 10:30 p.m. meeting. Victoria adjusted her glasses. Elijah said this was urgent. Elena, is everything okay? I'm at the Chicago property, Elena said, not wasting time. Lobby level. She saw some brows lift. I was denied my suite reservation. I was asked if my Centurion card was fake. The desk agents assumed it was stolen. They laughed at me when they thought I wasn't listening. Silence fell over the boardroom. Ms. Brixton, surely it was a misunderstanding, said Lawrence Redford, one of the original investors. Our concierge team is vetted extensively. Then either they failed your vetting, Elena said coolly, or your training failed them. Either way, this is not an isolated incident. I have over 2 years of silent reports from diversity testers and secret guests. I see the patterns now, and now I've experienced it myself. Victoria leaned forward. Are you saying there's systemic bias at the guest level? I'm saying it starts with a welcome desk and trickles up. Lawrence sighed. But to cancel the Traversa deal? That's $4.9 billion, Elena. I'd rather lose $5 billion than align with a partner who tolerates racism. Traversa's CEO made that diversity hire joke last month. Remember? Victoria winced. Yes, I remember. I warned him then, Elena said. And now this happens in my own lobby. My name isn't just on the building. It's on every contract, every policy, every soul this place touches. I refuse to look the other way. Not anymore. She looked straight at the screen. Effective immediately, Gregory Carson and Tiffany Ridgway are suspended. The hotel manager will be replaced. And I want full cultural retraining at every Meridian property globally, funded out of executive bonuses. Lawrence shook his head. This is going to make headlines. I hope it does, Elena said. The right ones. Part 5. The Reveal. By the time Elena returned to the front desk, her calm demeanor hadn't changed. But something in the air had. The phone behind the counter rang. Tiffany answered. Yes, front desk, Grand Merit. Oh, yes, she's still here. But, wait, her face turned pale. She looked at Elena with something unfamiliar. Fear. The hotel manager, a sharpshooted man named Peter Langford, came running down the hallway toward them. He looked flushed, his tie crooked from rushing. Ms. Brixton, he asked, already sweating. My deepest apologies. I've just been informed. You weren't informed earlier. Elena interrupted. No, I wasn't aware you were in the building. I'm so sorry for what happened at the desk. These employees are a product of your leadership, Elena said simply. Peter froze. I built this place, she continued. I own this place. And I've watched what you all do when no one's watching. Tiffany stepped back as if she'd been slapped. Gregory tried to speak. I didn't mean to. You didn't care to, she replied. You thought I didn't belong. You thought black meant fraud. You thought wealth had a face it needed to match. Well, here it is. She pulled a simple black envelope from her coat pocket and handed it to Peter. He opened it, his hands trembling. Inside was a letter stamped with a Brixton Holdings crest, naming Elena as chairwoman and principal owner of Meridian Hotels International. Peter dropped into a stunned silence. Tiffany looked like she might cry. Gregory looked down. And then Elena did something no one expected. She leaned in, quietly enough that only they could hear. I'm not here to humiliate you, she said. I'm here to educate you. She turned to the stunned guests in the lobby, many of whom had stopped to watch. Let this be the last night a woman who looks like me is treated like she doesn't belong anywhere. Because from today forward, I will show up not as your mystery owner, but as your visible leader. And if any one of you is uncomfortable with that, she let the pause stretch. You can leave, starting now. News of the incident spread faster than Elena anticipated. Not because she leaked it, but because one of the guests in the lobby had live-streamed it on social media. Within 3 hours, the video had over 6.4 million views. Black woman gets laughed at by hotel staff, then reveals she owns a whole damn place. The caption was electric, viral, truth with teeth. Twitter was ablaze. TikTok exploded. Miss Brixton began trending across all platforms. By morning, it wasn't just a headline, it was a reckoning. But Elena wasn't at the hotel anymore. She was already 10 miles away, in a quiet glass-walled office at the top of a private tech logistics firm, Brixton Dynamics, sipping black coffee as her assistant Elijah updated her on the global shockwave the incident had caused. CNBC is calling you the silent queen of billion-dollar empires. Elijah's voice carried a hint of amusement. Elena raised a brow. I don't want to be a queen. Well, they are saying you own everything from freight routes in South Asia to half the commercial property on Sunset Boulevard. I think the world is finally putting the dots together. I never wanted them to, she replied, more softly this time. I just wanted the work to speak louder than the name. But now the name matters, Elijah said. They saw what happened to you, and they saw what you did about it. Elena leaned back, eyes narrowed toward the skyline. It was cloudy, heavy with fog, like the world itself was holding its breath. Schedule a town hall, she said, for all 36,000 Meridian employees. I want to speak to everyone. Elijah blinked. That's going to take some serious bandwidth. Then give it bandwidth. Rent satellites if we have to. No more silent ownership. They need to know who's behind the curtain now. He nodded and stepped out, already making calls. Elena sat in silence, looking out the window as the wind brushed against the towering skyline of Chicago, a city that had once ignored her, underestimated her, and now would have to listen. Part 7. Legacy in the Marble. The next day, the Grand Meridian lobby was still almost reverent. Staff walked with nervous urgency, whispering about her like she was a legend that had stepped off a page. In the penthouse suite that had been denied to her just a day earlier, Elena stood with her mother, Elena Brixton, now in her 60s, regal in her own right, wearing a navy blue shawl over her shoulders and eyes that had seen too much to ever be surprised again. You remembered this place? Elena asked, pouring her mother a glass of warm tea. How could I forget? Yvonne smiled, looking out the window. I used to mop these floors at night. That's why I worked so hard for you, so you wouldn't have to. Elena's throat tightened. She looked around the room, ornate crown molding, gold inlays, silk drapes, and her mother finally sitting not as staff, but as a guest of honor. I never told you, Elena said, but I bought this hotel 6 years ago. All of it. Yvonne blinked, and then a smile cracked through. I knew it, she said, grinning. I knew when they sent me that Christmas card saying you donated $3 million to the Staff Pension Fund anonymously. I thought, that ain't charity, that's ownership. Elena laughed through a breath. I wanted to surprise you, but after what happened at that desk, I realized it's not about surprises anymore. It's about truth, visibility, legacy. Her mother's hand found hers. You always were meant for more, baby girl. But the world didn't always know where to put you. Now they'll have no choice. Part 8. The town hall that shook the industry. When the Meridian Town Hall went live, it reached employees in 49 countries, streamed to over 1,200 hotel branches, satellite offices, and administrative centers. No CEO had ever called such a meeting at that scale, and certainly not at such short notice. The screen went dark. Then Elena appeared, standing in a simple black suit, no makeup, no branding behind her, just her. Good morning, she began, her voice steady. Some of you know me. Most of you do not. Until now. My name is Elena Brixton. I'm the chairwoman of Meridian Hotels. But I wasn't born into this. I started cleaning offices with my mother when I was 7. I know what it's like to be ignored. I know what it's like to serve coffee to people who pretend you're invisible. The chat exploded in real time. Wait, SHE owns Meridian? No way. She's the one from the viral video. I work in Dubai. She's never been on a call before. This is wild. Elena continued. I stayed silent for years. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to see what my company truly was when no one was watching. What I saw yesterday at our Chicago property was disappointing, but it was also necessary. She took a long breath. It was my awakening, and now I'm asking you to wake up too. Because it's not enough to polish marble if we're still walking on prejudice. It's not enough to serve caviar if we're serving discrimination alongside it. She looked into the camera like she was speaking to each person individually. This industry is going to change, and it's going to start here, with us. Part 9. A different kind of check-in. Back at the Grand Meridian, things were changing fast. Gregory was gone. Tiffany was reassigned to cultural sensitivity training and community outreach for the next year at Elena's insistence, not as punishment, but as education. Peter Langford, the old manager, had been replaced by Camila Torres, a dynamic Afro-Latina executive who had once been turned down by the same hotel chain for not having the right image. Now she was in charge. And Elena? She checked in again. No fanfare, no announcement, just presence. This time, the woman behind the desk greeted her with a nervous smile, handed her the key with both hands, and said, "Welcome home, Ms. Brixton." Elena smiled back. "Thank you.